The galaxy was old and tired. Stars had burned and died long before memory. Civilizations rose, expanded, and vanished like dust. From this long history, strict rules were born. The greatest rule was simple. Everything could be measured. Everything could be scanned. Everything could be understood. The Zeroan Dominion believed this rule with full faith. They were ancient, logical, and cold. Their cities were built on floating plates of crystal and metal. Their skies were filled with silent machines. Emotion was weakness to them. Pain was an error. Survival was math. The Zeroan homeworld once shined blue and silver. Oceans covered most of its surface. Millions lived under a single united command. They believed they had mastered war itself. Then the war came. It did not arrive with warning. It did not ask for terms. A rival coalition attacked without mercy. Weapons burned the oceans. Continents cracked. The sky turned red for weeks. The Zeroan defenses failed, not because they were weak, but because the enemy did not fight by logic. They sacrificed fleets to open paths. They used pain as bait. They accepted loss without pause. The Zeroan command hesitated. Hesitation cost them everything. Cities fell. Billions died. The homeworld became a grave. Those who survived fled into deep space. Their belief in control shattered. Fear replaced certainty. They learned a new rule that day. The universe does not forgive mistakes. Years later, the survivors ruled again. Not from pride, but from fear of extinction. They rebuilt their fleets, improved their scanners, perfected prediction systems. They vowed never to be surprised again. Every species was labeled. Every threat ranked. Every ship cataloged. That was when the unknown ship appeared. It drifted near a dead star system. No escort. No signal. Just metal and silence. The Zeroan scanners showed weak readings. Primitive structure. Crude energy output. The species registry named it. Human. A young race. Emotion-driven. Short-lived. Low threat rating. The analysts felt relief. At last, something simple. Something small. According to galactic law, scanning a foreign military vessel without contact was forbidden. But laws were made for equals, not for insects. The command allowed the scan. Just a quick look. Just to confirm. The scanners reached into the ship, layer by layer. Metal, circuits, empty corridors. Then the data began to slow. Power readings did not match the size. Backup systems appeared where none were needed. Structural designs assumed damage as normal. The scanner core hesitated. It recalculated. Then recalculated again. Deep inside the hull, something blocked the scan. Not armor. Not shielding. Something intentional. The data began to repeat. Then distort. The Zeroan technicians felt something unfamiliar. Unease. This ship was not built to look strong. It was built to survive being torn apart. For the first time since their homeworld burned. Fear returned. The scan pushed deeper, against safety limits. Against ancient law. The final layer began to open. And the scanner touched something that should not exist. The screen went dark. Across Zeroan command space, alarms awakened systems that had not been used since the fall of their world. Somewhere inside the drifting human battleship, something noticed the scan, and responded. The scan did not fail. It was stopped. Zeroan command stared at the silent screens. Data streams froze in broken lines. Symbols lost meaning. Prediction models collapsed into error loops. This was not supposed to happen. Zeroan technology had mapped dying stars, measured black holes, predicted wars before they began. No machine had ever refused them. Yet this one did. The human ship still drifted. Silent. Motionless. Like nothing had changed. The analysts worked fast. They adjusted sensors. Lowered power. Changed angles. They told themselves the issue was technical. It had to be. The galaxy followed rules. Rules could be learned. Rules could be controlled. Humans were not supposed to be special. The Zeroan records described them as fragile. Their bodies broke easily. Their lifespans were short. Their emotions clouded judgment. Their history was filled with wars they barely survived. From Zeroan logic, this meant weakness. The scan restarted, slower this time. Careful. Cautious. It revealed more details. Not beauty. Not elegance. Just layers. Layer after layer of systems built over older systems. Not replaced. Not removed. Just added. Damaged paths had alternate routes. Destroyed nodes had manual control links. Critical systems were scattered, not centralized. To the Zeroan mind, it looked inefficient. Wasteful. Messy. But one pattern stood out. Every design assumed failure. Not rare failure. Not unexpected failure. Constant failure. The ship was built as if damage was guaranteed. As if survival meant continuing while broken. Zeroan engineers felt confusion. Why would a species build like this? Why accept constant loss? Then the scan reached the biological data. Human crew records appeared, fragmented but readable. Medical files showed extreme pain tolerance. Bodies operating beyond safe limits. Chemical responses that increased focus under stress. Pain was not just endured. It was used. To the Zeroan, pain was a warning. A signal to stop. To retreat. To humans, pain seemed to be a signal to continue. This idea unsettled the command council. Species that felt pain deeply should avoid conflict. But humans recorded pain, trained with it, planned for it. The scan touched memory storage. Fragments of recorded missions. Ships damaged beyond logic still completing objectives. Crews refusing evacuation orders. Not because of programming, but choice. The council dismissed the concern. Emotion leads to mistakes, they said. Stubbornness leads to extinction. They had once believed the same. The scan continued deeper. Toward the core, this area was heavily restricted. Signals compressed. Encrypted beyond known standards. The system resisted again. Not by force, but by delay. Time stretched. Processes slowed. As if the ship itself was deciding. The Zeroan felt something shift. A pressure they could not name. The skin finally broke through. Only for a moment. What it revealed was not a weapon. Not a reactor. Not a supersystem. It was a directive. Simple. Old. Repeated across every level of the ship. Not as code alone, but as structure. As design. As philosophy. The directive did not prioritize survival. It did not value retreat. It did not consider surrender. It focused on one thing only. Completion. Whatever humans started. They finished. At any cost. The data cut out again. Harder this time. More violent. The scan array burned out. Emergency systems activated across Zeroan space. The drifting human ship changed course. Just slightly. Almost unnoticeable. But enough to trigger alarms. For the first time, Zeroan Command considered a truth they hated. They might not be observing the ship anymore. They might have been noticed. And far away, beyond sensors and predictions, other human signals began to wake. The Zeroan Command did not panic. Panic was for weak species. They told themselves this was still under control. One ship did not matter. One unknown signal did not change the balance of the galaxy. They issued containment orders. Not an attack. Not yet. Just control. Gravitational nets activated around the human battleship. Invisible fields wrapped space itself. The ship's slow drift stopped. Locked in place like an insect in amber. From Zeroan view, this was mercy. The humans would be disabled, studied, then forgotten. The battleship did not fire. It did not signal. It did not plead. It endured. The nets began to crush the hull. Pressure increased in perfect calculations. Enough to disable engines. Enough to force surrender. Inside the ship, systems failed. Power grids overloaded. Lights went dark across entire sections. Atmosphere vented into space. Human crew members died without warning. Not in battle, but in silence. Pulled into the void. Crushed by force they could not see. The Zeroan scanners registered life signs dropping fast. This was expected. This was normal. But then something changed. Despite the damage, the ship's internal energy output rose. Backup reactors activated. Then backup to the backups. Power flowed through paths never meant to be used together. The Zeroan analysts frowned. Energy use should be falling, not climbing. The containment field tightened. More pressure. More force. Hull plates buckled. Structural alarms screamed across the ship. Medical systems were overwhelmed. Survival odds dropped below acceptable limits. Still, the ship did not power down. Instead, weapons systems began to warm. Old systems. Crude systems. Weapons that should have failed under this stress. The Zeroan Command laughed softly. These weapons would never fire accurately. They were relics compared to Zeroan precision tech. A warning burst was sent, demanding shutdown, compliance, surrender. There was no reply. The first human weapon discharged. Not at the fleet, but at the containment field itself. The blast was weak, inefficient, but it was repeated, again and again. Each shot damaged the ship further. Feedback ripped through internal systems. Human bodies absorbed shockwaves meant for armor. The Zeroin could not understand it. Why destroy yourself faster? But the field began to destabilize. Not because of strength, but because of persistence. The humans did not stop firing. Even as sections collapsed. Even as life signs vanished. Pain did not slow them. Loss did not end them. The Zeroin tightened the net again, deciding to finish it. That was when the human ship did something unexpected. It vented entire compartments on purpose. Dumped mass. Changed balance. Used its own dead weight as leverage. The containment field flickered. Just for a second. That second was enough. The human ship tore free. Hull shattered. Engine screaming. Barely functional. To Zeroin sensors, it looked like a dying animal. Spinning. Leaking energy, moments from destruction. They allowed it to flee. Confident it would not survive long. But as the ship escaped sensor range, the Zeroin noticed something that chilled them. The human battleship was not retreating toward safety. It was moving deeper into contested space. Toward Zeroin-controlled systems. Toward danger. The records updated automatically. Human behavior, unpredictable. Threat rating, under review. Far behind the fleeing ship. Inside broken corridors and burning decks. Human survivors regrouped. Not to mourn. Not to rest. But to continue. And across Zeroin command. A quiet realization began to spread. This conflict had not ended. It had just begun. The Zeroin command recorded the escape as a failure of containment. Not a threat. Not a warning. Just an error to be corrected later. They told themselves the human ship was broken. Bleeding power. Losing crew. Running on borrowed time. In Zeroin history, damaged ships did not return. They slowed. They failed. They died quietly. The analysts reviewed the data with calm voices. They spoke of probabilities and decay curves. They agreed the humans would not survive long. Emotion weakens judgment. Pain forces retreat. Loss breaks morale. These were universal truths. Or so they believed. The fleet did not pursue. They watched from a distance, letting the void finish the work. The human battleship drifted through darkness. Hull torn open. Fire visible even through vacuum. Energy output unstable. Life signs were low. Very low. The Zeroin felt satisfaction. A quiet relief. The galaxy was still predictable. Then reports began to change. The ship's course did not decay. It stabilized. Then adjusted. Small bursts of thrust-corrected spin. Not smooth. Not efficient. But stubborn. Inside the ship, conditions worsened. Air was thin. Gravity uneven. Radiation levels lethal by Zeroin standards. Yet human life signs clustered. Not fading. Grouping. Survivors moved through wreckage. Stepping over the dead. Using broken tools. Dragging wounded bodies into sealed compartments. There was no sign of panic. No mass shutdown. No surrender signal. The Zeroin monitoring crews felt unease again. This behavior did not match collapse patterns. They increased observation. Running deeper analysis on recorded human data. They found histories of lost wars. Burned worlds. Mass extinctions. Again and again. Humans were nearly erased. Again and again. They returned. Not stronger at first. Just angrier. More careful. The Zeroin dismissed it as coincidence. Survivor bias. But then the human ship sent a transmission. Not to Zeroin command. Not to any fleet. It was directed inward. Across its own systems. Internal power rerouted. Non-essential areas went dark. Weapons that had been offline activated. The ship was reorganizing itself. Not to survive comfortably, but to fight longer. The Zeroin laughed. A short sound of disbelief. One ship could not challenge a fleet. They authorized a limited interception. A small strike group. Enough to end the problem cleanly. The interceptors closed in. Precision weapons armed. Target lock stable. From Zeroin view, this was execution. Not battle. The human ship did not evade. Did not hide. Did not change course. It moved straight toward the incoming force. Like it wanted to be seen. The interceptors fired first. Clean shots. Perfect arcs of energy. The human ship absorbed the hits. Armor failed. Internal explosions followed. More life signs vanished. Still, the ship advanced. Then it returned fire. The shots were inaccurate. Widespread. Crude. But there were many. Relentless. Continuous. The interceptors dodged easily at first. Until one was clipped. Then another. Human weapons did not aim for destruction. They aimed for disruption. Sensors failed. Controls lagged. The Zeroin pilots adjusted. But the human ship changed tactics mid-attack. Without pause, without hesitation, it rammed debris fields, used wreckage as cover, turned its own broken hull into moving armor. This was not doctrine. This was instinct. The interceptors pulled back, damaged more than expected. Zero in command fell silent. Something was wrong. This was not a dying species. This was not collapse. This was resistance. As the human ship burned through the darkness, a new data packet appeared on Zeroin screens. A fleet signature. Human. Multiple. Far beyond normal range. Too distant to be coincidence. The laughter died completely, because the Zeroin realized too late. This ship had never been alone. It had only been first. The Zeroin command no longer laughed. They no longer spoke in calm tones. Screens across their command stations filled with red warnings. Human fleet signatures multiplied. Not fast, not sudden, but steady. That alone was frightening. Zeroin fleets were designed for clean war. Fast strikes. Perfect formations. Minimal loss. Human fleets did not move like fleets. They moved like storms. Uneven. Messy. But impossible to stop once they began. The damaged human battleship led the way. Still broken. Still bleeding energy. Still losing crew. Yet it did not slow. Zeroin weapons opened fire at maximum range. Precision beams cut through space, striking human ships again and again. Several human vessels were destroyed instantly, exploding into fire and debris. The Zeroin felt relief. This was how war should work. But the humans did not retreat. They flew straight through the wreckage of their own dead, using burning fragments as cover, using shockwaves as movement. Each loss changed their formation. Each destroyed ship altered their approach. They adapted in real time. The Zeroin targeting system struggled. Human ships did not dodge correctly. They did not follow safe vectors. They accepted damage to gain position. Zeroin commanders watched in disbelief. No species treated death as a tool. Inside the lead battleship, conditions were beyond survival limits. Air was toxic. Gravity failed. Medical systems were nearly gone. Human crew members operated weapons by hand, dragging cables, bracing bodies against recoil, holding systems together with physical force. Pain signals flooded their nervous systems. Bones fractured, skin burned, organs strained, and still they fought. To humans, pain was not a warning. It was confirmation they were still alive. The Zeroin launched their strongest weapons. Reality-warping strikes meant to end the battle instantly. The blasts tore through human lines. Space twisted. Ships vanished. For a moment, it seemed over. Then the human battleship did something impossible. It changed. Not by rebuilding. Not by repair. But by rethinking itself. Damaged systems rerouted into weapons. Broken shields became directional armor. Explosions were timed, not avoided. The ship learned from every hit. Zeroin sensors showed the truth. The more damage the humans took, the more effective they became. This broke Zeroin logic. War was supposed to reduce capability, not increase it. The human fleet closed the distance. Close enough for crude weapons. Close enough for ramming. Zeroin ships fell. Not cleanly. Not beautifully. But completely. Human vessels slammed into enemy hulls. Detonated reactors on contact. Traded one life for 10. Zeroin commanders ordered retreat. Something they had not done since losing their homeworld. But retreat required order. And humans destroyed order. The lead human battleship pushed forward. Barely recognizable now. A moving ruin. Held together by will alone. It targeted the Zeroin command carrier. The symbol of control. The mind of the fleet. Zeroin defenses fired everything. Space burned white. The battleship did not stop. At the final moment, it triggered its last reserve. Not a weapon. Not a shield. A choice. The ship detonated sections of itself in sequence, using its own destruction as propulsion, turning collapse into momentum. The impact shattered the Zeroin command carrier. Systems died. Control vanished. Across the battlefield, Zeroin ships lost coordination. Formations broke. Weapons fell silent. The human fleet did not celebrate. They pressed the attack. Because humans did not fight to survive. They fought to finish. As the last Zeroin ships fled into darkness, a signal spread across the galaxy. Fast. Unstoppable. Humans were no longer unknown. They were no longer weak. And the galaxy had just learned the cost of forcing humanity to adapt. Far from the battlefield, ancient councils awakened. Old defenses powered on. Because one truth was now clear. If humans were willing to die like this for one battle, what would they do for a war? The battle ended. But the shock did not. Across the galaxy, data spread faster than fear. Records updated. Threat tables rewritten. Assumptions erased. The Zeroan fleet returned in fragments. Burned hulls. Broken command chains. Silent ships drifting without purpose. They did not speak of defeat. They spoke of survival. Their command carrier was gone. Their central logic shattered. For the first time since their homeworld burned, they had lost control again. Zeroan leaders gathered in dark chambers. Not to plan revenge, but to understand. They replayed the battle in endless loops. Every decision, every mistake, every human action that broke logic. The conclusion was simple and terrifying. Humans did not fight to protect life. They fought to protect purpose. They accepted loss before the battle began. They planned for pain. They expected death. This made them unstoppable. Other civilizations watched in silence. Species who had once laughed at humans, who had marked them as emotional, primitive, temporary. Those records were deleted. New classifications replaced them. Humanity, high risk, unpredictable, escalation certain. New laws were written, not by vote, but by fear. No human ship was to be scanned. No human territory was to be tested. No human distress signal was to be ignored. Because the galaxy finally understood. When humans were quiet, they were preparing. The drifting wreck of the first human battleship was never recovered. Its remains scattered across space, mixed with Zeroan debris, a shared grave. But human fleets did not mark it as a loss. They marked it as a line. From that moment on, human ships traveled with a new reputation. Not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as a warning. Zeroan space grew silent. Trade routes shifted away. Borders tightened. Old enemies became cautious allies. Fear reshaped the map of the galaxy. Deep within Zeroan archives, a final note was added to their history. Simple words, written without emotion. They had believed the universe could be controlled, measured, predicted. They had been wrong. Humans were not chaos. They were consequence. Far away, on human worlds still scarred by old wars, new ships were being built. Not sleek, not perfect, but layered, redundant, stubborn. Each one carried the same idea, burned into structure and design. Humans never surrender. They do not stop when they are losing. They stop when there is nothing left to stop. Somewhere at the edge of known space, a human battleship powered on, scars visible across its hull, systems humming unevenly. It did not broadcast threats. It did not demand respect. It simply moved forward. And across the galaxy, ancient civilizations felt something they had tried to erase from memory. The same fear the Zeroan felt when their world burned. Because now they knew. The galaxy had rules. Until humans arrived.